You know, hands can tell us a lot about a person, can't they? You know, for example, a person walks up and extends their hand. You know they're wanting to greet you. They're open to you. On the other hand, if that person comes up to you like that, you know suddenly they're not so open to you. The closed fist means that they're angry, or they want to drive you away or hurt you. Somebody comes to you and they hold something out to you in an open hand. It means they're giving it to you. Somebody sees something and they snatch it. It means they want it. This is mine. And that's what old Scratch the Devil is doing today. He's trying to make people with clenched fists to say, this is mine, to be takers rather than givers. And we see the success that he has of that with Eve. He comes up to Eve, and remember, God has given Adam and Eve everything, their lives, a whole world and everything in it, everything they need. But because there's that little strain of a taker in them, that's not enough. See, the sad thing with takers is no matter what they've got, it's never enough. That's why they're never truly happy, because they're always wanting to take something else. And so finally, he says to her, is it really true that you can't eat of that fruit? God's not telling you the truth. If you eat of that fruit, you'll be God. And Eve makes that terrible mistake of reaching up and taking. It's mine. I deserve it. I've earned it. It's mine. Takers, again, are tragic people. He tries to do the same thing with Jesus. You can almost see Jesus out there in the desert. The Holy Spirit has sent him out after he's been baptized, but he forgot to pack Jesus a lunch. So Jesus is out in the desert, and he's fasting. The days pass, and I'm sure he gets hungrier and hungrier and hungrier. And you can almost see old Scratch coming up to him. He fills, you can almost see it. Perhaps he fills the air with the smell of baking bread, so that poor Jesus is even hungrier than he thought he was. Even the scorpion walking along on the sand there in the desert isn't safe, because he's looking pretty good right now. And then Scratch slides up to him and said, if you are the Son of God, turn these stones into bread. He wants Jesus to become a taker. But Jesus has absolute faith and confidence in his Father. He trusts him. It's not only that Jesus is also God. Remember, he's a real human being. So this is a real temptation, and he has to overcome it. And he doesn't overcome it simply because he is God. He overcomes it because he believes and trusts in his Father. And he remembers his Father's words. And so he says, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. You can almost hear Scratch go, curses, foiled again. Well, this time of Lent is a time for us to look at our hands and say, what am I? Am I a person who is open? Do I have a giving heart? Am I really a loving person? Or am I a taker? Someone who says, it's mine. To be a taker means the first thing in my life is me. I come before God. I come before everything else. So to be a taker is really a sad thing. And a lot of people are takers without realizing it. If there's something in your life, something in your life, or even someone in your life that is more important to you than anything else in the world, you might just be a taker. And takers generally leave tragedy wherever they go. Many years ago, when I was a deacon up at St. Bonaventure Parish up in Northern California, I met a taker, but I wouldn't have known it at the time. There was this young couple wanting to be married, Mickey and Gary. Man, they seemed to be so much in love. Went through marriage prep. Father Fred was going to do the marriage, and he and I worked together with them. And they were just, every time, that kind of lovey-dovey stuff that every time they were around you, you want to go, oh, But a loving, beautiful couple, right? They got married. I remember talking to Mickey a few weeks after they got married. They came back from their honeymoon, and she was talking about she'd never been happier in her life. And then about 3 months in their marriage, she told me, Father, my happiness is complete. I just found out I'm going to have a baby. I don't know, it was 3 or 4 days later, she came home from work, and on her kitchen table was a note from Gary telling her that he was too young. Now, he's 28 years old. He was too young to be a husband and a father, and he had to go and find himself. See, Gary is a taker. He's a person with the clenched fist. Because, you can just see old Scratch coming up to him and saying, you want out of here, don't you? Don't worry about the fact you've made a vow. Who cares? Don't worry about the fact that you're the father of a child. Who cares? You're the most important thing, aren't you? So he reached out and took. He cleaned out their bank accounts and he disappeared. If he had come to talk to me before he did this, I'm not quite sure what I would have said to him, but maybe I would have said something like this. Take your hands, swing them back behind you, swing them forward. You found yourself. Now get on with it. The simple fact of the matter is, to be a giver is to lead a sweet life, a joyful life. Here about 5 years ago, there was a funeral in South Africa. About 3.5 million people came to this funeral. It surprised the government, it surprised everyone else, because the man for whom the funeral was given was a king. His name was Zosheliswe, and he was the king of one of South Africa's tribes, but he was also one of the country's poorest men. His royal robes were patched and dirty. His palace was falling apart. It wasn't because he didn't have money. Under South Africa's new constitution, he had a salary of about R250,000 every year. And many people around the world donated to him. But every dime this man received, he gave to his people. He built hospitals and medical clinics and schools. He paid for scholarships so that his young people could go to the best schools in the world, to Oxford and to Cambridge in England, and to Harvard and Yale and Princeton in the United States. Because he saw that for him, his greatest joy was to see his people succeed. They had lived broken and in poverty for so long. And now he was doing what he could to build a new future. And because he did that, his tribe, his people, are now one of the more developed peoples in South Africa because of the generosity of one man. Yes, he was a king, but what really mattered was he's a giver. Jesus was a giver. The folks that go over during the 40 days for life and just stand and pray quietly outside Planned Parenthood, giving up 2, 3, 4 hours, are givers. The folks at St. Vincent de Paul who give of their time in order to help the poor and the needy in our community are givers. The people in our Legion of Mary who visit the sick and the hurting and the lonely and the forgotten in our parish are givers. What are you? Are you a giver or are you a taker? This season of Lent is time now to go into the desert and ask yourself, do I go through life with a clenched fist? This is mine. I earned it. I deserve it. It is mine, mine, mine. Or are you a giver? Someone who realizes truly that love really doesn't matter until you give it away. That life really doesn't matter until you learn to give it away. I challenge you, spend some time during this Lent just to ask yourself, what am I? Am I like Gary, who said, I'm the only one that matters? Doesn't matter if I hurt my wife, I abandon my child, I walk out on everything that I've sworn to uphold, because I'm the only one who matters, and I have to take care of me first. Or to go through life like King Joshiliswe, giving from the heart, touching lives and making a difference. I'm not asking you to give away everything like the king did, but just to look and see, where am I? That's why we give alms during Lent, is to remind us of the fact that God gave everything for us. That on that last terrible day, he had to turn away as his son hung upon the cross, because he was making the ultimate gift for each one of us. All of us are called to be givers. That is the way of true joy, and it is the way of true meaning in our lives. So I invite you, look at your hand. Is it a clenched fist? Or is it open in love?
Give me a